Here. Okay, and welcome to class number 5 of Sigils and Symbols with Eternal Silver Moon Circle. And we're going to talk about alphabets tonight. Really, really excited about this. Why do you want a magical alphabet? The basic reason is because sometimes you don't want other people to be able to read what you're writing. You can, if you've got like nosy people in your household that are going to be rooting through your things and looking through your books of shadow, and you may not want them to read what's in there. So you may want to use a special alphabet to change it so nobody else can read it. That's the original purpose for a lot of neo-pagans historically to use a magical alphabet, was because they didn't want people who did not know about their magical leanings to, or their witchy leanings to, know about their activities. So it was for a secret code, but that's not really the original purpose. We're going to go back to this huge, horribly massive tome called The Three Books of Occult Philosophy by Henry Cornelius Agrippa, a 16th century astrologer and theologian who wrote this massive amount. These are 3 books, massive amounts of information on all sorts of esoteric and magical and astrological information. And he through the books, he has an entire section in book 2 on sacred math, on the sacredness of numbers. That we know that numbers have some special meanings, like 3 is a special kind of a magical meaning. 5 is like the points in the pentacle. 6 is the Jewish star, the Star of David. 9, so all kind of numbers have special. 12 signs of the zodiac, they have special and sacred meanings. So that's another whole category. The numbers themselves can be used in talisman. We don't really consider them a sigil, but it is important to know that they have meaning. But there's all kinds of information in there. He does get into, in the book 3, this is chapter 29, it's called Of the Characters and Seals of Spirits. That's what it's called. This is translated obviously into English because Agrippa, he would have been, I think, writing in Italian, probably Latin, actually probably writing in Latin originally. So this is a translation. But I think this bears reading, so we have a perspective. Okay, this is chapter 29 of book 3 of the 3 books of occult philosophy by Henry Cornelius Agrippa. And he says, we must now speak of the characters and seals of spirits. Characters, letters obviously, therefore are nothing else than certain unknowable letters and writings preserving the secrets of the gods and names of spirits from the use and reading of profane men, which the ancients called hieroglyphical or sacred letters, because devoted to the secrets of the gods only. All right, so this was alphabets that were devoted to the divine, for a divine purpose, basically is what he's saying. For they did account it unlawful to write the mysteries of the gods with those characters with which profane and vulgar things were written. The ancients were willing to conceal God and divine virtues by sensible figures and by those things which were visible, yet signifying invisible things, as being willing to deliver great mysteries in sacred letters and explain them in certain symbological figures, as when they dedicated all round things to the world, the sun, the moon, hope and fortune, a circle to the heavens, parts of a circle to the moon, pyramids and obelisks to the fire, and so on. Then he says, okay. So then he notes a specific alphabet, which is called the Theban alphabet, Theban, T-H-E-B-A-N, that is attributed to a scholar called Honorarius of Thebes. Now, I looked that name up in Wikipedia, and it's not exactly a historical figure. There's no record of this Honorarius of Thebes, but this was somebody that Agrippa knew of and attributed this to. So the alphabet, this Theban alphabet. All right, here we go. And this is what it looks like. We're gonna get up into there. Yeah, the Theban script. And you notice that it's referred to as the witches' alphabet. This has probably been referred to as the witches' alphabet because more than any other alternate alphabet, this has been used for magical workings through the ages, and most particularly in the neo-pagan times. So it's been used by a lot of people. It's used in modern Wicca, used in witchcraft. It's like I said, it's used to hide magical writings. It does not look like any other alphabet. It's unique. And like I said, this is attributed to this Honorarius of Thebes. And, all right, and then, okay, and then in chapter 30, he goes into these other alphabets. And this is that graphic that I have scanned from this book. It's page 563 of this book. But these are other alphabets. Now, Agrippa himself originated a couple of these alphabets because they are based on the Hebrew letters. And if you know anything about Kabbalism and the Kabbalistic magical workings of the ancient Hebrews, the Hebrew alphabet itself has also been used extensively, especially in the medieval times, for magical purposes. All the Kabbalistic stuff of the tree of life, and each of those points, Sephiroth on there is referred to by a letter, a Hebrew letter. So this these other alphabets, this is chapter 30 called "Another Manner of Making Characters Delivered by Kabbalists." He says, among the Hebrews, I find more fashions of characters, whereof one is most ancient, an ancient writing which Moses and the prophets used, the form of which is not rashly to be discovered to any, for those which they use were instituted by Esdras. There's a reference to who that is. And there's also another writing that they call celestial. So there's celestial writing, and then there's two other versions of this. These are also based on Hebrew characters. One is called, he's got here the writing called Malachim, and the other is called the writing called the Passing of the River. I don't know where those names originated, and he just calls them that. Okay, now I'll pull this up now on my phone, but this is page 563 from this book. I scanned it. So here you're going to see at the top of this graphic, the Theban alphabet, the celestial writing alphabet, the Malachim, and then the Passing of the River. So if you were to use one of these others, you would have to first find the English equivalent of the Hebrew letter, and then find the equivalent of one of these other alphabets, because three of these are based on Hebrew. So here's the graphic. Oh, get that up there. Okay. All right. So there we have the Theban at the top. Then we have the celestial writing. They're all quite different from each other. Why is this doing that? There we go. And then the Malachim, and then the Passing of the River. Some similarities. They should also look somewhat similar to some of the sigils that we looked at Oops, there we go. The camera's got to adjust. The sigils that we looked at for the Behenian fixed stars also looked similar. They were straight points with little circles at the intersections. So that's also a common theme between these. Okay, so that is Agrippa. All right, so far we have 4 possible alphabets that could be used. We also have Hebrew, that's 5. Another one that is commonly used. Okay, I've got a page for the Kabbalah that I will be sharing with you. The Greek alphabet. Okay, now this is adapted from an article by Nigel Pennick called Magical Alphabets, and he has the Greek letters, the translation of what meaning is assigned to each Greek letter, the English equivalent, and then the meaning of the letter itself. So if you wanted a specific thing, like here's an example. Okay. All right, if you were dealing with like dreams or the underworld, maybe you're going to do some ancestor work, you would probably want to use the new I don't have the actual, I just have the word new, N-U. I don't have the, I mean, you can look it up. Wikipedia, look up the Greek alphabet. I don't have the actual alphabet, the actual letters. And you may know that in Greek, you have like the capital versions, and then you have the small script versions of each letter, just like in English. Okay, so new, and the translation of new is actually Hecate. How cool is that? And it corresponds to the letter N in English, and it stands for, and I found references to Hecate in Agrippa. He refers to her as the hag. Oh, well, there's arguments about that, but that was kind of like a, she was definitely assigned to the underworld, anything that had to do with death and all that. So the hag, nighttime, and the underworld, unpleasant necessities. Such as it is. Maybe you were dealing with, okay, let me see another one here. Wealth and the foundation of society is the meaning for alpha. The letter alpha in Greek refers to the bull or the cow, which you can imagine that in those times, having a bull or cow was a signature of wealth. That was the wealth, was to have livestock, to have cattle. And of course, that corresponds to the letter A, and so on. So I have a whole sheet of all of these. Okay. So I will share those. Delta, in fact, is means the 4 elements. So any kind of elemental work, you can always use a delta, which is just a triangle. A delta symbol you can use for any kind of elemental work. And in fact, that we already talked about the fact the elemental sigils, they are all based on triangles. Guess what? That's why. Now we know why they're all based on triangles, because delta itself means elements. So there's that mystery cleared up. Oh, here's the Greek. I got the Greek alphabet here. I will upload this entire, this is like my teaching document, and I'll upload that so you've got the whole thing. But yeah, the Greek alphabet, just like English, has upper and lower cases. Okay. And then that's the meaning. Okay. So you will have access to that. Now we've done a whole class on the runes. The runes obviously are also an alphabet. So many people, especially if they work with Norse deities, will choose to do magical writings with runes. That's perfectly acceptable. I don't think I would mix alphabets unless you really wanted to be devious and make sure that nobody could even possibly read what you're doing, but that can be confusing and you might lose track of what you're doing just as well. Okay. So when we talk about using alphabet letters for a sigil, for a talisman, okay, we may choose to just kind of make it more mysterious. make it less reliant upon looking like an English word to make it could be a way to signify that the meaning of this is known only to us, or it's hidden, especially like if you're going to put a talisman on a home altar, and there might be people around who would see that. You don't want them to be reading your talisman. That would be a great reason for having to choose a magical alphabet to use. You might use just one or two letters. You could, condense it into something smaller. You could make a new sigil out of letters from an magical alphabet as well. You could do that. Okay. The last article that I have that I believe was part of my source article for this class, and this is an article called, and this is from learnreligions.com. The article is called Magical Alphabets by Patty Wigington. She's done a lot of writing of things that we've used for classes, a lot of basic things. So she talks about the Theban alphabet, and basically it's everything I've already told you about that. She goes into runes and gives some sources. Another thing that she uses is the Celtic Ogham, which is another form of writing. It's kind of like cuneiform, that's just lines. That's the Celtic Ogham. That's an ancient script. So that is something also. I don't have a sample of that here, but it's something you can easily find. And then, of course, the celestial alphabet that I shared from Agrippa. And there you have it. Those are magical alphabets that we can use. And we didn't talk about doing calligraphy, but some of these alphabets, because they're really kind of pretty, especially the, hi Elijah, especially the Theban alphabet is kind of a script type of an alphabet. So that would be one that would be really cool to do in a more of a calligraphy style. That would be kind of nice. And there we are. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, before I forget, I wrote down some more, but I don't have samples to show you, but these are things that you could look up for yourself. There is something called, actually look them up on Pinterest. Pinterest has got like everything. You think that the Google has a lot, it's all on Pinterest, I swear. There's a fairy, F-A-E-R-Y, fairy alphabet that you can look up. There's something called a dragon script. But when you look at it, you're gonna go like, those are mostly runes, very similar. There's some characters that are different, but that's very, very similar to the runes. Obviously, Egyptian hieroglyphs can be used. Those are pictographs, and almost all letters of all languages have come originally from pictographs, so that kind of makes sense. And then, of course, runes. All righty. Any questions?
Is there one that you consider better than the other for magical workings?
The one that you like. The one that works for you. You could just try some. The Theban alphabet is, like I said, it has become something of a traditional witch's alphabet. It's used in Wicca a lot. So you might, dabble with that. That would be good. I like Greek letters because I work with Hecate and Greek deities. So, if you're more Hellenic, you may choose that. If you do a lot of work with Egyptian deities, you may want to add some hieroglyphs in there, So things that are more appropriate to what you're looking at. If you're working with angels, then you may want to use that celestial alphabet. Okay. Good question. Which one do you use? How do you pick? Okay. Well, I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you very much.